Hello there everyone and welcome back to another Muunilinst mock update video, and this is a very exciting update because today I'm going to finally start on the large tower at the back of the build, the one that goes right behind and is connected to the cannon that I built in the previous episode. I'm going to be outlining how large the tower is going to be, how tall I'm going to have it be, and then I also start to build one side of the tower and try to figure out what design am I going to go with for this build. There's a lot of challenges to be had with building something this large, so without any further ado, let's get started. Alright guys, and we're back here on Muunilinst for another episode. I want to appreciate all the support on the previous couple episodes. I got a lot of great feedback. I'm now once here, back at home again, done with the school semester, so that's great. Now I can get building here, and we're getting really close to Brick World, so I'm really going to have to start kicking it into gear here. So huge shout out. I'm finally now being able to get back to all the feedback you guys had and start to implement those here pretty soon. So first off, what we're going to work on for this episode, either the cannon, or if you remember in the previous episode I discussed what I wanted to do down here with kind of a ruins destroyed battle damaged area down here. So one of those two things I got to decide what exactly I want to work on for this episode. I just got to figure out what I want to do for the episode. As you can see, I started to outline part of the cannon back there. I'll get into that in a little bit. But right off the bat here, by the time this video comes out, Brick World is just a few weeks away, so I'm estimating probably 2 or 3 more episodes until the finale. So really getting close, because I'm going to need to do the finale before I head to Brick World, because there's no way I'm going to be able to bring this back entirely 100% complete, because I have a feeling it's just going to fall apart during travel. So I need to have it done completely before I get there and have a finale. So that's my goal, is to do maybe 2 episodes and then a finale, maybe 3, but we'll have to see. Time is really running out and I got to get going on this. So for this episode, again, either going to do the ruin section down here or the tower. I do want to say I really loved the feedback that you guys gave on the cannon. I got some feedback on the barrel that I'll try to implement here pretty soon, and then I also got feedback on from a couple different people, and I agree with them. This definitely should be higher if I have the pieces to do it, so hopefully I'll be able to get to that. That'll probably be a finale thing, because I really need to focus on filling all this empty space right here with the ruin section and then the tower itself. So I'm going to do a little bit of outlining on the tower and kind of show you guys what exactly I have in mind, and then I'll start to get really working on this episode. Alright, we are here on the back side of the MOC, and I started to lay out what I had in mind for the cannon. So I showed a little bit of like a smaller version of the cannon, like a micro scale version, and that kind of gave me the idea on how to get started. This was a few episodes ago, a while back, but I kind of went with that design. I really wanted the backside to be sloped, because that's just kind of how I always envision it in my head, and from some of the screenshots, is I just thought it'd be kind of cool to have a sloped back. Now the problem with that was I realized that if I wanted to do slopes, in order to get it as tall as I need it to be, it was going to slope in pretty far if I used these larger slopes right here. So what I tried to do was use a lot of these smaller size slopes. That way I'm not going as far into the base plate, and I think this actually does give it a interesting kind of slope on the back, and I think it works because the more I kind of prototyped, I don't know how big of a slope I want it to be. So you can see right there, I've got the base of the tower, and you see these sides with the larger slope pieces. Those will go up pretty high on the sides, so mostly, and these are indented out one, if that makes sense. So these sides will go up and up and up, but the middle I think will stay like this, and then I'll start to build the backside of it right here, something like that. This is going to take a lot of experimenting. I've never built something this large before, so I'm kind of just laying the groundwork to try to figure out how am I going to pull this off. Right now I'm just kind of going through the planning phases on, just from it's an architectural standpoint, how am I going to do this, because I've never tried something this large before. So wish me luck. I'm going to keep prototyping, and up to you guys once I figure some more things out. Alright guys, so I've set up part of the structure of the tower. As you can see here, I showed you guys part of the slope on the last clip. Now I've got more slopes going all the way up top. So this is kind of what I had in mind, where I was using these larger slopes, going off of the bottom slopes and going all the way up like this. And I had to put some supports there because of course it kept falling down. So this is as high as I would like the sloped part to go. If you take a look at the actual cannon, you'll notice I'm almost separating it into 2 sections. So there's parts where it slopes all the way up, and then on top of the tower there seems to be like the actual control center. So it's kind of a different shape with the actual red windows and the control center. So I'm going to split this up the same way, where I'm going to work on the structure, kind of the ascending part of the tower where it goes up, and then a second part will be built on top, which is the actual like control center. So this is as tall as I would like it to be for the actual slope part, and the control center would go on top. Obviously this is going to be a huge resource grab because of that. As tall as that goes, this whole side needs to be covered with parts, which is massive. So I may have to downsize, although I hope not, because the reason I want it to be so tall is because I need it to be taller than all of these buildings. And really the problem right now is that building back there is very tall because it's just a tower with not much, stuff going on. It's just kind of a straight up tower, and I need this to be taller than that. I feel like if the tower in the back is shorter than one of these other buildings in here, it really throws off the whole effect of kind of making it realistic and authentic and good looking towards what the actual show is trying to represent in the 2003 Clone Wars. So this really needs to be tall. And looking at the back side here, there's actually 2 layers of slopes, as you can see, because I want it to create a little bit of depth. I don't want it to just be one set of slopes right up there. So there's actually 2 layers of slopes, and it kind of creates a little offset that goes up, and there's a little gap. So I think that actually works pretty well. And then I would just need to figure out what I'm going to do for this back side, because I can't keep using those slopes to go up and up. It just won't catch up in time, and it'll keep going out like this. So this is going to have to be some sort of, maybe a panel would work really well. I was watching Rich Boy Jay's awesome first episode on Camino, and he mentioned the use of panels and how helpful they were. So definitely check out his episode if you haven't been keeping up with his stuff. But he mentioned how often he thinks panels are really useful. So maybe I try to experiment with panels. I've never really tried that before to cover up this backside, because I'm going to need something to cover this up, and I don't want to use bricks because that's just going to be so many bricks. So I may be getting myself into a little bit of a hole in terms of this may be way too big than I have the resources to do. But at this point, I'm willing to do whatever to get this MOC finished. So I'm going to be making a couple more orders anyway to get this thing finished. So yeah, this is what I got so far. I'm going to continue to work and see what else I can do and update you guys once I have some more progress. So goodness, this is going to be tricky, but I'm excited for it. Here we go. All right, guys, so I did a little bit more work here, and I had some things to figure out. So the last clip you saw, I got the height that I was kind of hoping to get. Then I had to decide how I was going to build up this side right here. Now, if you remember, I talked about maybe doing the door right here where the speeder bikes come out and into the open. This is an overall bigger thing, but the more and more, the closer I get to Brick World, and this happens, every time I build a large MOC, is unfortunately, if you don't manage your time well, I've kind of going up to the crunch here, always trying to get stuff done last minute, you kind of have to take some things out and make some sacrifices in some places just to get the MOC done. And I was kind of building it, and I was like, I don't have time to design a whole door. I really just need to get moving on this and fast because of how big and tall this tower is going to be. So I just kept building. So no door on this side, unfortunately. Another thing I noticed is there is some old dark gray 1x1 plates mixed in there. That's because I ran out of dark bluish gray 1x1 plates. That's another thing, is okay, don't really have time to sit here and not work on this because I don't have the pieces, so I have to find a replacement and just go because I need to get this done. And it's one of those small things. It's not a big deal, I don't think. But essentially what I kind of decided to do was do the same design I did for this on here up until, and try to get them lined up the same. You'll notice this one is a little bit taller than the other one. I'll talk to that in a second. But I wanted to keep things uniform. I didn't want it to be just a, dark gray wall because I'm a little worried about the cannon being too much dark gray. So I really wanted to sprinkle in some of that sand green, and that's what I did over on this side. And I got it to the same height as I did over here. And then the next thing I realized was, well, now I have to start integrating this wall into the actual cannon. So I kind of was looking at reference, and it's almost like there's a platform, and then the cannon is on top of the platform, and the tower is on top of the platform. So that's one of the reasons why I kind of just extended this design to make it seem like it's all big, one large piece, and then the actual tower will start to be built on top of it. But I did integrate it with the back slope, so it's kind of almost as if these two things were built together, and the cannon's built into this kind of sand green brick wall right here. So I'm kind of all trying to make it blend together. But essentially what I realized was it would look really weird if all of a sudden the masonry just stopped on a flat line and then the tower started, even though that might be what it looks like in the show. I wanted to kind of transition it a little better because translating it into Lego, I need to have more of a transition here so it actually looks good. So that's why you'll notice I am starting to fill in some masonry brick elements and plates and moving them up a little bit so it is taller than this, because I need to integrate it with the dark gray. You'll notice I'm starting to just do dark gray bricks right there, dark bluish gray bricks, because that's primarily the color of the tower itself, so I need to start integrating that so it isn't such a rough transition. So I'm kind of working through that right now, and then once I keep going up and up, it'll be mostly dark gray. But of course, that's not going to be good enough because I cannot just have this build or this part of the tower be just dark gray, because it'll just look like a dark gray wall and it'll look really bad. So what I need to do is figure out ways to make it interesting, give it some texture. So I could do the classic greebling, which is just a bunch of kind of details you'd see kind of like on, Lego versions or the Star Destroyer, the UCS Star Destroyer, any sort of rough detailing along the outside with different studs and plates sticking out and making it rough looking. But really, when you're looking at the 2003 Clone Wars, the tower is really smooth. Like it's very clear that there's not any greebling whatsoever on the thing. It's very flat and smooth. So I don't know if I want to go with greebling, although that is an option. My second option is to do it mostly dark gray. And then you'll notice there are, if you've seen the screenshots, or I'll try to put one in the video either now or earlier, there's these kind of translucent red windows, I guess. So I think I'm going to do a bunch of those, or one big one, kind of like you see in the reference picture itself, where there's one big window on the side of the tower. So I'm definitely going to have that. But even with that, it's going to be a pretty tall, dark gray structure. So what else can I do? I think I'm going to add maybe some battle damage elements. So maybe there will be like a hole blown out in the side of the building or the tower, and then maybe you can see inside, and maybe there's like a droid control panel, or maybe there's some droid barracks or like stations, charging stations or something like that, or maybe a banking clan room, something to where it's not just a flat wall. So maybe some battle damage, and then those red windows that I talked about. Hopefully that'll be enough, because I want to keep it accurate to the show. But again, the tower is very flat, and there's not really too much there for like a detail to translate into Lego. So that's what I've got so far. Sorry for a lot of talking. There's just a lot to consider when trying to make this canon, and it's kind of in a rough shape right now, so I need to start working on it. But right now I just need to integrate to this wall and build it into the dark gray, which is going to go up and up, and I'll start to be able to put in the windows and the battle damage. So, and there's not any really battle damage on the actual tower itself, but I think it's going to be okay. For instance, there's a scene or a shot where one of the ARC troopers shoots a rocket launcher at the tower, so I might be able to do something like that with the clone trooper shooting a rocket launcher up and hitting the tower, and that's where some of the battle damage came from. So a lot of options. The big thing to consider is try to add stuff to this side so it's not just a flat dark gray wall. So that is kind of the big challenge for this build, but I'm gonna go ahead and get back to work. All right guys, so I did a lot more work last night on this building, and I got it all the way up to the height that I was hoping to have it. You can see we've got a minifig down there for perspective. I apologize for all the talking, but there's just a lot to go over. So the back side, I actually was able to get the angle that I was wanting to from the reference pictures with the slopes. So I got those sloped up all the way that I wanted to. I added in one battle damage element, which I will show you guys here in a little bit. And I've got part of the red translucent pieces. Unfortunately, I did run out, so I'm gonna have to order some more, because ideally that stripe would go down a lot farther than I have it right now. So I got all those elements that I wanted to do. You'll also notice that a lot of the dark gray parts are kind of offset, if that makes sense. So I didn't line them up like instead of just stacking them so that it all line up together. Some are different plates off, so that there's a little bit of a difference in the lines, if that makes sense. You kind of can see it from right here. So they're all not in a straight line. They're kind of zigzagged and offset, and using 1x1s, 1x2s, 1x4s, and plates as well to kind of give it a different look. So again, this has been a huge struggle throughout all of Muunilinst, is accurately portraying something that is in a 2D animated show into Lego form, and I've kind of figured out how to do that with a lot of these buildings, with adding different textures, details, and things like that. But the cannon itself in the show is just a dark gray tower with a few red pieces. So as you can see, the big thing I don't like about this is it's just way too flat and boring in my opinion, and that's because it's literally just a straight wall that goes up, and it's just dark gray, and there's just not much going on at all, which again, in the show, it's just dark gray tower. You know what I mean? It's not really anything super crazy or any super crazy shapes. Again, the top of the tower is going to be pretty unique with the control center. That's really what makes the tower unique and recognizable in my opinion. But this bottom part is really just sloped up, and it's just dark gray. And I'm realizing, yeah, it looks cool, but in my opinion, I think it just looks it looks cool, but I think overall it just detracts from the rest of the detail on the MOC. Even these buildings where there's lots of walls, they're all detailed with masonry bricks or different plates and things to make them detailed. This is just flat dark gray wall, and I think it doesn't look good enough, and I just think it looks too boring. So what are my options? Now, technically I could try to find a different way to do this where it's not just bricks, where I try to find some other way to make this have a little more shape to it, but due to how big this is going to be, I need to use parts that I have a lot of, which are dark gray bricks. So I did talk about putting some greebling. I may try to do that now as well, as try to do some greebling in here. Otherwise, I guess I could show you this right now. A little hard to see, but here is the battle damage element. I'll try to get maybe a better shot later in the episode, but I kind of made this as if there was a rocket launcher that hit the center of the building right here and kind of tore through into the back. So I'm using some battle damage elements with masonry bricks and studs and different things like that. And then in the back, I don't know how well you can see it, there's some different wall details and a door back there and some ground details as well. Again, I'll try to get a little bit better of an angle hopefully later, but here's the destroyed element that I was kind of talking about adding in. So one of my plans that I could do to make this a little better and not so flat and boring, as I get the focus back on here, sorry. Another thing I can do is maybe add more of those battle damage elements. So perhaps I put another one down here, another one over there, and really give it some depth, because what I do like about that battle damaged element is it actually makes the tower have some depth to it, which I really do enjoy a lot, and makes it not as flat and not as straight up. So I could do that. Again, that's not accurate to the show though, because there really isn't any battle damage on the sides of the building, but I think that's something that would make this look a lot better is if I do kind of more of those battle damaged holes throughout the building. I think that would really improve it, but I just don't know if I want to make it that battle damaged. Another thing I was considering is instead of just using dark gray bricks, is perhaps I use some masonry, and I take some dark gray masonry and kind of sprinkle it out throughout all of here in different parts of like the sides and everything. So I could try that. I'll still have the problem of this will feel like a big flat wall, but at least it'll have some detail on it. Another thing I was considering was maybe even, and again, this won't be accurate whatsoever, but it might be a necessary thing to add, is taking some sand green masonry bricks and plates and kind of putting them in different patterns throughout the wall. So kind of like how I have down here with these zigzag patterns, is perhaps maybe I put like another zigzag over here, down over here, maybe one up there, and really just sprinkle different colors throughout. Because the flatness isn't the only problem, it's also the color, just dark gray, just not the most beautiful color when you're just building a wall like this. So there's a lot of things that I need to consider before moving forward here, whether that be greebling, whether that be more battle damage elements, whether that be adding more masonry brick in. Lots of things to consider. Here's a look from the backside. Again, I actually think this is, I'm happy with the way it looks from this backside. I'm able to get the shape and slope down that I'm wanting to get represented from the show, where it kind of slopes up on the backside and then goes flat and goes straight down on the opposite side. So you'll notice I did a little bit more work down there with some different colors and slopes and bricks, and then I was able to get the slopes all the way up. So I think the backside does look pretty good here, and once I get that paneled out, hopefully that'll look pretty good. But right now, I need to figure out what the heck I'm going to do for this part. So I'm going to try a couple different things, update you guys, and then probably close out the episode and get some feedback and see what you guys have to say, because I have a feeling this is going to be a long episode from all the talking and planning. But my plan for this episode is just to finish this side and see what happens. So I'm going to do a little bit more work, and hopefully I'll be able to come up with a solution. All right, guys, so I worked some more on the tower. I've got a few new things here to show you guys, and then we'll probably close out the video because I've come to a standpoint where I need to order more parts before I can continue on the tower. So next episode, while I wait for those parts to come in, I will be working on this ruins area down here and then finishing some of the road work all the way through here, and hopefully get kind of everything in this empty space completed before I finish up the tower, because I'm going to need some more pieces before I do that. So I'm going to go ahead and run through what I did. First off, I went ahead and added in another kind of destroyed part to the building. I think this really helps a lot in terms of the flatness and kind of boringness that I was talking about. I added in another one down in there, very similar to that one, a little bit different. Looking at it now, I'm thinking I may even want to do another one in the corner down over there. I'm a little worried by having too many of these holes and making it look a little too unnatural, because 2 I think looks okay. I'm a little worried about 3, so maybe I just leave it like this. Again, I'm going to have to check and see what you guys have to say for feedback, and again, once I order more of those translucent red pieces, those will kind of come along down in here and be more of a stripe, so keep that in mind. So the biggest part that's going to be plain gray is going to be down here in the corner once I get those other pieces in. Here's the new destroyed element that I added in here. Again, very similar to the one up there, just slightly different. I added a little bit more depth to this one, so it goes a little bit farther back for those masonry pieces, and then I actually used the same wall design back there. If you can see it back there, same wall design and things like that. So it's very narrow. It's gonna be really hard to see back there. So I don't want the focus to be too much on that. I just want to make it look like it goes back into the rest of the tower and the structure. So here is the destroyed kind of element that I added. So now I've got two, and I actually think it looks pretty good and adds some good depth to the tower. All right, so the other main thing I did here was start to do this corner piece right here. So I was looking at the build, trying to figure out how I was going to get it to connect to the front of the tower, and I didn't want it to just be a straight rectangle or like a square where it just kind of goes in an L shape. I feel like that would not work the best. It wouldn't look very good. So I wanted to figure out how to make it curved or have some sort of curved rounded piece to make it go around the corner. I kind of figured this out using these slope pieces. I'll go in for a close-up here in a moment. But essentially what I did, well, first off, these need to be changed to dark gray. I just don't have any more, so that's another thing I have to order, which is why I need to finish the episode here so I can get those ordered, but these will all be dark gray, so keep that in mind. But I actually think this rounds the corner a lot better, so it's not so flat around the corner. When we come around here, you can see, I think it's just going to work a lot better once I get that front piece. So this will be on both sides, and it'll connect to the front here. And I think it just makes it look not so flat. I was really worried about that. So here are the pieces. I don't know the name for them, of course. They're these kind of slope pieces. I've used them quite frequently, especially on the front of the cannon right there. But essentially, I've got them hooked up there. So it almost is pretty much flush and lines up exactly with the corner of the tower itself. And it'll go up, and I'll need to add a couple more to get up there. I also started to add in some of these kind of slopes up here, inverted slopes, because that's where the top will set on. So that'll be the next episode. Well, the episode after next, probably. The top of the tower will stay on top and will be placed on top of these inverted slope pieces. So I've started to put those up there. But here's what I've got. So this goes all the way down, and then the idea is that it will connect. You can see I've got I think a 1x8 down there in dark gray, and that'll be kind of the front of the tower. So that'll go up like this, and hopefully that'll be flush with this corner right here. So you'll kind of have a little bit of a curve here, and I think that'll just look a lot better for making it look not so flat and boring. Here's the view from the back side of the tower. Again, this episode was just a lot of work on this front part right here, or the side part, and trying to figure out how that's all going to work, and of course a lot of planning. So next time you see me working on this tower, I'll be working on the front section, replacing some parts over here, making that red stripe go down, and starting to work on this back section right here, and of course the very top of the cannon or the tower as well. But here's what it looks like on the back side. Overall, I think this is okay. It's going to be kind of hard to figure out what it's going to look like because so much of it is left unfinished, but I think the general idea is there of what it's going to look like from the side, at least, in terms of the actual wall connecting to the cannon itself and how it's going to round that corner. And I'll just be looking for feedback on what you guys think of the plan. Do you think using slopes on this side to make it go up looks good? The height of the tower doesn't need to be taller or smaller. Taller is going to be a little harder to do, but just know that it is going to be a lot taller because the actual control center goes on top of those inverted slopes. The rounded corner, hopefully that turns out well. It's going to be hard to know what that looks like until I really start to work on the front side of the tower. And I think the biggest thing overall is, does this side panel, is it too flat, not detailed enough? You know, that was my big worry, and why I added a second kind of hole or destroyed element right into here to make it not so flat, because I was really worried about that flatness of the tower. So hopefully it looks okay. I do realize it's going to be hard to tell just due to the incompleteness of the build, but that's what I got so far. A lot of talking in this episode, I apologize, but there's just a lot to figure out on planning because this is such a big element, and most likely going to be kind of the first thing people notice when they look at the MOC at the convention is this giant tower, so I really need to make sure it looks good. And so far it's coming together. I need to just keep working, order some more pieces, and really start to get the shape of this thing down. But this is kind of like the pre-planning episode, and again, I'm going to have to wait till those parts get in, so next episode will be focused on kind of this bottom section right here with the debris field and kind of getting that all figured out, all the ruins and everything, getting everything complete so I can finish up the tower right before Brickworld. So that's about it. Now let's go ahead and move on to the outro. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you did enjoy. I had a lot of fun working on the tower. There's a lot of challenges in this episode, trying to figure out how high to make the tower, how to slope it, how to round it, how to figure out to build these side walls. So many different issues to try to work around. That's part of the fun of these large scale MOCs, and this is just the beginning to count the famous Count Dooku. To count the famous Count Dooku? To quote the famous Count Dooku, this is just the beginning. So there's a lot more work left to do. Unfortunately, I got to order a lot of parts to finish the tower, so I'm not going to be able to do a lot of work on the tower for next episode. Next episode, you're going to see a lot of smaller things finished up on the road, and this bottom part below the tower, I'm going to work on a whole bunch of rubble and debris and maybe a small structure to kind of fill out the remaining space left on the MOC. So then the final episode before the finale, I'll be able to finish up the tower, and then we'll have the finale episode where we finish up all the small miscellaneous things that are left undone throughout the MOC. So lots of exciting stuff coming up from Muunilinst as we get very, very close to Brick Road Chicago. So I'm working really hard, trying to get everything finished up on time, and it's a lot of fun. So thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, leave your feedback in the comment section below. Hope you guys have a great day, and may the Force be with you always.